Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we'll be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that asked you what you thought of the 6th episode of The Acolyte. I'll also then of course be reading and responding to a few of the comments left on the poll, and so let's right away get to it, where we'll see that 2% of those who voted thought this episode was excellent or really good. Another 8% then said they thought it was pretty good or at least above average. 13% then went with it was okay or maybe a bit below average, which then left 12% to say it was terrible or just not very good at all. And then there was a final 66% who said they're not watching this or just haven't watched this episode yet, though I am guessing or assuming the vast majority of those have no plans on ever watching this. Which, as I keep saying every week, is just kind of sad. It's sad to see 2/3 of people who, in some capacity, follow my channel and are Star Wars fans who follow a Star Wars channel, that they have no interest in actually watching the newest Star Wars. And this, of course, despite a recent claim or a recent article put out there by Screen Rant, I believe it was, that claimed that The Acolyte is the most popular Star Wars show on Disney Plus since the Kenobi series. And they just want you to never mind the fact that their rather bold claim was made off two determining factors, those being the actual numbers, the views or minutes watched, for the first 14 days of the show and only the first 14 days, as well as online engagement, how many people are talking about it or searching for it or watching videos or just engaging with it on social media. And of course, the problem with using that particular metric to make a positive claim about this show is that a lot of people engaging with The Acolyte either aren't watching it at all or they're not enjoying it and want to talk about why they're not enjoying it. Not to mention another reason why engagement is so high for this show is that, as you've probably noticed if you tend to watch a lot of YouTube, but virtually every and any channel that covers entertainment, and even some that don't, are making videos about The Acolyte, or at least they were, especially those first couple weeks or after the first few episodes. Channels that don't, again, usually cover Star Wars pretty much at all are making videos and getting tons and tons of views in some cases, even millions of views. And on my channel, for the first few episodes especially, views just absolutely exploded, and it wasn't because I was saying the nicest things ever about the show. However, as the season has gone on, as the show has gone on, those numbers are cooling down really fast. It seems like that initial curiosity about The Acolyte is dying down, and for many, apathy is setting in. They just don't care about the show, good or bad, anymore. I even saw an article on IMDb just this morning that said, according to data from Illuminate, that The Acolyte has dropped out of the top 10 most watched shows with the latest episode. In other words here, and no, I don't exactly blame Disney and Lucasfilm for trying to paint their show in the best or most positive light, or paying certain websites to try to do that for them, but I don't exactly think this show is a win for them, not unless you really do go by the old saying that any press or any kind of publicity or attention at all is good for you. Because yes, it has been getting a ton of attention. It has been getting a ton of engagement online, that is for sure. No one can argue against that. But it does seem like the majority of it is coming from people who don't enjoy the show or who aren't even watching it and want their voices to be heard. They want people out there to know why they're not watching it. And speaking of letting voices be heard, let's get to some comments now, but not before, once again, very quickly just saying thank you to everyone who votes, comments, or watches these or any of my videos across both channels. Thank you so much for that. Also a huge thank you to those who support my channel over on Patreon and make my Discord server the absolute best place to talk some Star Wars on the internet. And now on to some comments, where we'll start with the top-rated comment, as we always do, which comes to us this time from Skelthane, who said, "At a certain point, I have to wonder if the number of people watching videos about The Acolyte has exceeded the number of people watching the actual show." And I mean, that is basically what I was just saying. If it wasn't for the people talking about why they don't like it or why they're not even watching it, just how many people would actually be talking about the show? And sure, there are some out there who are genuinely enjoying it for whatever reason, which, yeah, go ahead and enjoy it if you want to. There are also those who just kind of love everything and anything Star Wars, either because they just want to love Star Wars or because they've spent so much time kind of claiming that anyone who ever says anything negative about it is a toxic hater or a bigot or something like that. And thus they've kind of painted themselves into a corner of positivity where their critical opinion of it doesn't really matter or mean anything because they can't or refuse to even be actually critical of it, or again, only ever say positive things. The irony being they're not really any different from those who just hate on it no matter what. They're no different from those who only say negative things about Star Wars. They both have a narrative they're trying to pitch, and that's about it. They also then tend to be the fans who are impressed by pretty much anything and everything Star Wars ever does, and they blow it up as if it is the coolest thing to ever happen. I mean, when you're seeing tweets, or whatever they're called these days on X, but when you see tweets where people are kind of losing their mind about the lightsaber whip, where they're trying to argue it is the coolest thing like ever seen in Star Wars, it's the best new lightsaber, even though it's not really new. And even though it was on screen for, no exaggeration if you haven't watched it, but it was only on screen for 3 seconds and all it did was split a bug in two. And so when you're out there claiming how cool it was, you're either extremely easy to please and truly only care about pretty colors and flashy lights, or you're latching onto anything that is even remotely cool to try and find positive things to say, because you know deep down this show is a mess. This is a poorly written show. And as I always say or try to point out, but those who praise it and love it and only say good things about it are just encouraging them. They're just encouraging Disney and Lucasfilm to continue to be lazy with Star Wars. That if you're willing to watch anything Star Wars, then they're going to be willing to give you anything Star Wars. But anyway, let's move on now to this comment from the Matsis, who said, "They just don't explain how May fooled Soul well enough. This episode frustrated me because it seemed like a lot of plot conveniences and not actual storytelling." And I guess we're just supposed to believe that Soul was so distraught over what happened that his senses in the Force were all messed up or something, or he was just blind to her somehow because of it, or she somehow registers differently in the Force. She feels so much like her sister that, again, a distraught Soul didn't or couldn't tell the difference. Though, honestly, I think I'm equally bothered or more bothered by the fact that May thought she could fool him. Not to mention, what was she even trying to accomplish? If she wanted to kill Soul, she could have done that before he even woke up. And at one point, it does seem like she's trying to kill him or going to try to kill him when she is sneaking up on him from behind with a knife. But then he senses her, but again, doesn't sense that it isn't her or isn't Osha. But anyway, beyond even that, beyond even trying to figure out what was going on with her in this episode, in general, I have no idea what May even wants at this point or why I should care. She has flip-flopped so many times without explanation, so many times that I honestly have no idea, again, what she wants at all. One minute she's trying to kill a Jedi without a weapon, the next she's going to turn herself in. Then one minute she loves her sister more than anything and Osha being alive changes everything and oh my god, this is so great. Then the next she's leaving her for dead on the planet and again trying to pretend to be her sister in order to fool Soul so that she can accomplish something for reasons. And I mean, she and Osha are supposed to be the main characters of the show. If there are any characters in this that we should understand, it's her and her sister. We should understand what they want, and if we don't, then you have failed with the show. You can't just keep saying that this is a mystery and that explains why we don't understand what is going on. A good mystery allows you to try to figure things out, and then when you watch it again, you can say, oh yeah, now I get it. Now I see the things that you were so clever in hiding. But I would be absolutely stunned if I have the courage to watch this again after it is complete, to go back and see if there are any clues, if this does make sense beforehand. I would be stunned if it does. They keep calling this thing a mystery thriller, and I'm starting to think that what they mean is that the audience would be thrilled if this mystery had a point. Alright, and now on to this comment from Gian Fry, who said, "It felt like an episode made of filler scenes, as it could have been 50% shorter and nothing important would have been lost, and it's not the first time this happened. We're near the end of the season and we can now say it. This is a show about nothing, as it had nothing to say, show, or add." And though I do agree with you, I'm going to kind of say that they could have or should have gone the opposite route. This episode sure could have been 50% shorter and nothing is really lost, or it would have accomplished pretty much the same thing. But if it were 50% longer, or even more, and actually knew how to create interesting dialogue or interesting interactions between characters, if it, I don't know, took more than Kamir saying like 10 things to Osha in order to convince her to put the helmet on at the end of the episode, and that according to Leslie Headland, Osha is starting to fall for him. But if they actually knew how to write characters, there is a semblance of something interesting here, I will say that much. But unfortunately, they don't know how to write characters. They just have characters that say the bare minimum thing to move the plot along, or move what I think they're calling the plot along. And as I was saying in my review for the episode, I didn't hate the stuff between Kamir and Osha, not in general anyway. I think he is using tactics that a Darksider would use to turn somebody to the dark side, especially someone who is maybe a little bit more young and malleable. But the fact that it starts to work on her in under a day, the fact that she forgets all about the people and friends that Kamir killed like the day before, literally the day before, she literally saw this guy snap Yord's neck right in front of her, and suddenly somehow she forgets all that and starts to just kind of listen to this guy. Even though she acknowledges or says or asks him, is this the tactic that you use to turn my sister? She is aware that he is playing games with her and is being manipulative, but falls for them anyway, again, in less than a day. And if you took a little more time, if this episode had been longer, if it had been over the course of a couple days, or even, weeks or months, maybe we could believe that Osha started to fall for this, started to fall for the act, and started to see his vulnerable side more than just seeing his junk for 30 seconds and saying, well, I guess this guy can't be all bad. Look at that piece of meat down there. Anyway, sorry for that. But no, you got to take your time. You got to build up characters. You got to do more than just say, over the course of the day, this character is falling to the dark side. I mean, why should I care about this character? Why should I care about someone who's so easily manipulated? It's just all fan fiction levels of writing, plain and simple. But anyway, on to this comment now from Joshua Rittenhouse, who said, all these fakes pretending they haven't watched the show but happen to tune into Acolyte reviews, lol. And the funny thing is that I personally tend to watch reviews more for things that I don't watch or haven't seen or don't even plan on ever watching, more so than for things I do or did watch or do plan on watching. I actually very rarely watch reviews for things I have already seen, to be completely honest with you. Sometimes yes, but usually no. And I'm not saying this is supposed to be proof of anything, it's a personal anecdote, but I'll oftentimes watch reviews for shows I maybe started to watch once upon a time and kind of checked out of at some point along the way. Or there will be a show I watched the first season of, and then all of a sudden a bunch of time has gone by. Maybe my interest in it has waned, and I miss a season or maybe even two. And I'm like, I don't really care or have the time to watch it, but I am kind of curious what happened or what people thought about it. So I will watch a review to see what happened, or that maybe it is or was worth watching. And so I do indeed end up going back and giving it a second chance. I even do that a lot more with movies for whatever reason. I don't really watch many movies anymore. The few I do watch, I will almost always go to the theater to see. And if I don't catch it there, I tend not to catch it at all. I will then have a tendency to maybe watch a review of it just to know if it was good or what was it about or whatever. I'm just curious. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in doing this sort of thing, but maybe I'm not. In other words, it wouldn't shock me if these results are pretty accurate, that a lot of people really are not watching the show but are still curious as to what's happening, to the point where they'll watch reviews, maybe a lot of reviews, and not just for the sake of hating on it, but because they are kind of genuinely curious, or just kind of want to know what's going on in it because they still care about Star Wars and are curious to some degree. Plus, even if people are hate watching it, is that really something to kind of take away as a win or a positive thing? I mean, I guess it increases viewership, but are you really happy so many people are not liking Star Wars but watching it anyway? Again, is that something that should be looked at as a win? Don't you just kind of wish it was better and more people were enjoying it and watching it for the right reasons, you could say? But anyway, I think that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me if you have been watching The Acolyte, and if you have, what you've thought of it, or tell me why you're not watching The Acolyte. Or tell me your theories or how you think this thing is going to end. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment below and let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.